My dad was a massive sci-fi fan when I was a kid. He loved Lost in Space, the original Star Trek, all of it. He really liked it. So in Lost in Space, there was that crazy computer thing, warning, Will Robinson, warning, warning, warning. I can honestly say to you that a lot of times when something disastrous is going, I'm driving down the road and I see this person cutting in and out of traffic, I just know an accident's about to happen. Or suddenly everyone's slamming on their brakes and landing. You're going from 80 to 10 miles an hour within about 20 seconds. In my mind, I can still see that thing, warning, Will Robinson, warning, warning. It's just hilarious, the things that stay in your mind. Today on Paint a Beautiful Picture, we are going to talk about potential disasters because, sometimes people flirt with disaster and intentionally warning them. Kids are stupid. Let's be truthful with each other, okay? When I was a little kid, I took the eyes out of this teddy bear and jammed them so far up into my nose. But my parents didn't believe in going to the doctor, so they called my aunt, who was a nurse. She got these long, long tweezers, jammed these things. I thought she was going through my eyes up to my eyebrows. I kid you not, I was screaming and having a fit. My aunt didn't get them out of there. I can't tell you how sore my sinuses were for months after that. And at one point, I crammed some things in my ears, too. My brother once took some metal ring that he found somewhere out in the woods and put it onto his private parts and ended up swelling all around that thing, and he had to go to the ER and they had to cut it off, not the appendage but the ring. Just, oh my word, the things kids do. My son used to light fires in his bedroom in a coffee can. Just, yeah, kids, lands, flushing 4 pairs of underwear down the toilet rather than telling you that they had accidents all day long when they're supposedly potty trained. And then you've got to pay $3,000 to the plumber to come take every pipe in your house apart to get this stuff out. Kids, land sakes, kids do crazy stuff. They are just unbelievable because they don't think and they don't process things the way that we do or the way that we would like them to. But let's be truthful, adults, they can be just as stupid. Really, let's be real. How in the world do you avert horrible disasters? Well, you got to get kind of intentional about your warnings. I was very intentional with my sons about alcohol. I had a brother who's a raging alcoholic and got into a car and killed a woman and a couple of her children. Did some time for that, and deservedly so, I might add. I did not have issue with that. I told my kids, if you're going to drink, I don't care. Go ahead. Do not get in a car. Just don't. Don't do it. Call me. Call a cab. Do anything. Do not get in a car. Don't do it. First time my son ever drank, he said, Mom, as wasted as I was, I could hear your voice. Son, do not get in that car. So I did not. So then his friend said, well, I'll take you home. He's like, no, you won't. You're drunker than me. He knew, don't get in a car. Not if you're drinking. You got no business behind the wheel. And he had no business in the vehicle with the other kid that was drunk either. And he knew it. Don't do certain drugs because they can mess you up forever. I knew a couple people when I was a teenager that dropped LSD and went on really bad trips and never got back again. A couple of them killed themselves. A couple of them were just messed up for life after that. Yeah, you can intentionally warn your kids. You should intentionally warn girls at parties, don't put your glass down somewhere. No telling who's going to put what inside that drink, and you're going to come back to it later, and God help you with what that guy may have in mind for you. And that happened to one of my sisters, so I happen to know that for a fact too. You need to warn your kids about the kind of people they hang around with. You hang around with certain people, you're very likely to end up in jail or in the juvenile system or even dead. You can't afford to be with certain kinds of people that are going to lead you into deep trouble. You can't. You can intentionally warn your kids. You can intentionally warn your kids about suicidal thoughts, and you should, very truthfully. With the incidence of suicide today, you need to have those discussions. if you're depressed, if you really mess something up bad, if you think you cannot possibly find an answer or a solution to something and your only option is to kill yourself, I want to assure you and warn you there are other options. You must come talk to me. You absolutely must give your kids intentional warnings. A kid who loves to speed, so he's gotten 4 or 5 speeding tickets already and he's not even 17 years old yet. Man, you need to intentionally warn that kid. A car is a lethal weapon. You want to drive like an idiot? You can ride a bicycle. I'm taking your keys. Seriously, if you love the kid, you don't want him dead on the side of a road somewhere. You got to stop him if he's not smart enough to stop himself. You don't sit there with the 3-year-old and let him keep taking a screwdriver and jamming it into the electrical outlet and go, you shouldn't do that. You know you shouldn't do that. You take that thing away from him and smack his hand. Use your head, mom and dad. You have a kid who's being a complete fool. You take that thing away from them. You don't let them keep doing that. You lock them in their room if you have to. You nail down the windows. I mean, you have to get extreme occasionally. We already established that sometimes people are pretty foolish. And if you got a brain and you're wise, you've got to intentionally warn them. And sometimes you actually have to stop them dead in their tracks so that they don't hurt themselves or someone else. That is your job as a parent. It is perfectly appropriate with a 16 or a 17-year-old as much as it is with a 3-year-old. I want to assure you about this. You need to intentionally warn your kids about sexual activity. I can talk to you as a Christian and tell you that it's morally wrong, and some of you will just like throw that out. So I'm going to get down to real brass tacks with you from the viewpoint of a counselor as well as a Christian and say to you, every time you give a part of your life away, whether that's your heart or your body, and God help us all, both parts of that you give to someone, then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And in 4 or 5 years from now, you feel really empty and you feel like you have nothing left. But you really want to have a home and you really want to have a family, but you already gave so much away, you're not even sure you can find yourself. Wow, that's not a good place to be. You need to give intentional warnings to your young people and your kids. Don't flirt with disaster. Don't play stupid. Don't run out in the street and think that nobody's ever going to hit you. And that's very allegorical, but it's also reality. Keep your behind out of the street because it's not a good place to play. You just have to intentionally warn your children and your young people about potential disasters in their life, and there are tons of them. The balance is not scaring them half out of their minds. Both of my kids are so adventurous. Wow, they've been around this globe and they've done some of the coolest things. So though I warned them very strongly, I also explained to them that you also have to be brave and courageous, but when you do things, you need to do them sensibly, wisely, and with as much protection around yourself as you possibly can. So we need to give them that sense of balance. But I really want to ask you today, my challenge question is, are there areas where your child is flirting with disaster? Are you intentionally warning them? And when necessary, are you getting in their face and stopping them from going down a really dangerous path? I would love to hear your comments, questions, or suggestions. I will really be excited to see you soon again on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.